This is the Registered Behavior Technician course presented by Shaza Attar. The course content was created by Shaza Attar and is the property of Autism Therapy and Training, Inc. All rights are reserved. This training program is based on the Behavior Analyst Certification Board 2018 RBT Task List 2nd edition and is designed to meet the 40-hour training requirement for the RBT credential. The program is offered independent of the BACB. Remember, in each class, we will have our active listening, a quiz, and a competency assessment. Hello everyone and welcome back. Today's topic, I'll be discussing implementing naturalistic teaching procedures. So what is natural environment teaching, or NET? Why is it important, and how does it differ from table teaching? NET is one of my favorite types of teaching practices, and I'll explain why as we go through this topic. Let's jump right into it. Natural environment teaching is when a concept is taught in context. This is a method of teaching loosely following the learner's establishing operations. Remember those EOs? Targets are embedded into play and asked when the motivation is high. If you recall back to our pairing class, I talked about choice points. These are those high moments when the learner is motivated for the item and the target can be embedded naturally. Realistically, NET should never really feel like teaching, but more like play. The structure of your play will start with creating a predictable routine. For example, with an early learner, you may play peekaboo, and do this a few times so that the learner predicts your action. Once motivation is established, then you can select the choice point. This is the moment where you pause and either wait for eye contact, ask a question, or something else. If the learner does not respond, you can provide a prompt. If they do, the reinforcer is provided, and that is the continuation of the actual play. Once you have done this a few times, you can now create variations to the play to ensure you're sustaining your learner's attention. Okay, let me show you a predictable routine. All right, let's roll it, roll it, roll it. Oh, roll it.
Let's make
squish.
Big.
Oh, big. Okay, let's see if we could do this. Ready? Let's roll it into a ball. Roll it, then smash. Whoa, you got it here. Roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it, and smash. You try. Roll it, roll it, roll it, and smash.
Roll it, and smash.
Yeah, you got it. All right, now we've got 3 pancakes. The RBT will interact with the learner on the floor or on the table. It's not determined by the actual location. You can ask questions and give instructions in relation to the activity. For example, if you're playing in the sandbox, the RBT may ask the learner to label shovel, copy pouring actions, fill in questions such as you dig with a. Sundberg and Partington in 1998 noted that NET was established based on the frameworks of the natural language paradigm, incidental teaching, and the expanded program of milieu language training. Natural environment training provides an alternative, less structured, and more naturalistic approach to teaching verbal behavior than DTT. According to Sundberg and Partington in 1998, natural environment teaching should be used as a teaching technique in early intervention for children diagnosed with autism, in addition to DTT. NET seeks to enable children with autism spontaneously to emit and to generalize verbal behavior in the context of motivating activities. Michael, Sundberg, and Partington all noted that in the initial stages of NET, the therapist focuses on man training through manipulation of a learner's motivation. During NET, You want to embed your domains such as the tact, mand, coax, and so on. This is a playful interaction with targets embedded at varying natural points. The targets you embed depend on the learner and their program. Some children might have advanced WH questions while others are working on receptive skills. You can embed previously acquired skills and intersperse them in the play just like you would in ITT. So I want you to imagine you're playing with trains. The man could be something like the child saying, "Train, please." The receptive, you might tell the learner to, give me the train. A tact might be something like you asking the learner to label the color of the train. As the intraverbal, you might ask the learner who drives the train. For imitation, you might have the learner copy an action with the train, such as moving it up and down the track. For an echoic, you might tell your learner or ask the learner to say, "All aboard," and copy your behavior. Early learners will start in the net. Intermediate learners will spend more time in ITT or DTT, but with some time in the net as well. Advanced learners will return back to the net, taking everything that they've learned and bringing it to its natural environment. We do this because we want the learner to be able to talk about their world in the natural context. For example, if I taught my learner that you eat with a spoon, I want to ensure that they understand the concept in context. So as we're playing and pretending we're at a restaurant, and I might ask the learner, "What do we need to eat with?" while I'm looking at my bowl of soup. So early learners, they'll spend about 70 to 80% of their time in net. They'll usually have limited skills, and this is where pairing really starts for them. And we gradually increase demands here. Manding will also start here. Simple program targets are embedded in the play context. Most of the teaching with early learners may be prompted. Try to fade whenever and wherever you can based on your learner. I want to demonstrate net with an early learner. The hardest part when working with early learners is sustaining and maintaining their attention. You may find that their motivation is fleeting and they may run around, so you'll need to work on developing the relationship and building longer periods of time where you can actually sustain their attention. A key part to this is really finding things that the learner enjoys and that you can keep playing with them for longer and longer periods of time. So this first video, I want you to watch for eye contact. I want you to see how my choice point is eye contact. Next, I'll begin embedding other targets such as imitation, receptive, and echoic. Good morning, friends. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good. Yeah, give me a high five. Love how you guys are sitting. Fantastic. All right, here we go. We're going to get ready to do our circle time for today. Here we go. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you. Good morning, and how do you do? Your face is like sunshine, it brings us good cheers. So happy to see you, so glad that you're here. The good morning train is coming, how are you? Choo, choo. The good morning train is coming, how are you? Choo, choo. The good morning train is coming, the good morning train is coming, the good morning train is coming. How are you? Choo, choo. And we'll say good morning to Johnny, how are you? Choo, choo. And we'll say good morning to Sammy, how are you? Choo, choo. And we'll say hello to everyone, and we'll say hello to everyone, and we'll say hello to everyone. How are you?
Choo choo.
Can you say choo choo for me? So let's go through our 7 days of the week. Are you ready?
Yeah.
There are 7 days. There are 7 days. There are 7 days in a week. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Which one is Wednesday? Yes.
Over there.
This one?
No.
This one?
No, I worked it at.
Oh, this one. Which one is Friday? Can you tell me? Is it this one? Is that Friday?
I don't know.
You don't know. Do you want me to tell you? Let's see if we can help out. Are you ready, Johnny? There's Friday.
Sammy.
So now we did our 7 days of the week. Let's go into the months of the year. How many months are there in a year? Yes.
12.
There are 12. Good job.
there are only
January,
6.
February, March, and
and
April, May, June, July, and August, September, October, November, December. These are the months of the year. Well done, my friends. So we did the days of the week, the months of the year, and now we're going to go into a little book and read a story. I have a special book for you guys here. And this book is one of our favorites. We've read it a few times. We're going to go through it together. So who's hiding on the farm? Can you guys tell me what this is here?
Is it a tractor?
It is a tractor. What color is that tractor?
I think it was red.
It is red. And what do you see under the tractor? Yes.
The wheels?
Under. What do you see under the tractor?
It's a cat.
It's a cat. Do you think the cat should be under the tractor?
No.
That's quite dangerous. Let's take a look and see. Here we go. Who's hiding in the stable eating some hay? Who do you think it could be? Could it be a lion?
No.
No.
I think it could be a horse.
Do you think so? What do you think?
A horse.
All right, here we go. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Oh, it's a horse. What does the horse say?
Nay, nay.
Nay, nay.
It's a very good sound.
Who's eating carrots and hiding in the field? Who do you guys think it is?
A pig.
I think it was a rabbit.
Oh, we have to do this one here. You think it's a rabbit?
Yes.
You think it's a pig?
No.
Let's see who's right.
It's the other one.
Yeah, so we were looking at this one. I almost made a mistake and went to this one. What do you guys see over here? What are these?
Carrot.
Carrots. What color are carrots? Can you give it a try?
Let's do.
What color? What color are they?
I think they're orange.
They are orange. Very good. Let's count them together. Ready?
1, 2, 3,
Three.
4, 5.
5,
6.
just on this page.
Wow.
But then we have 6 and 7. Any
But
other
there's
ones?
more.
Where?
These two.
I counted those.
No.
Oh, you think those are carrots. They do look like carrots, so yeah, maybe there are some
Yeah.
carrots under there. Let's take a look at this one. Who's been rolling? Oh, I didn't ask the question yet. Who's been rolling around in the mud?
A pig.
A pig.
Yeah.
Let's see if he's right.
It is.
It is. Very good. What sound does the pig make?
Oh, it makes the sound oink.
Oink, oink. Who's barking in the doghouse?
Oh, you just gave us the answer.
Oh, did I give you the... Well, I didn't write this book. Who do you think?
The dog.
The dog. What were you going to say?
A dog.
What color do you think this dog is?
Brown.
Do you think he's brown? What color?
Brown.
There he is. And dogs live in
A dog.
a doghouse. Do they sometimes live in your house?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you guys have a dog?
No.
No, I don't have a dog. Do you have a cat?
No.
I have a cat.
Wait.
Okay. Who's quacking on the pond?
It's a duck.
Do you think the same?
A duck.
A duck.
Quack, quack.
Quack, 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 quack. Very good,
I'm
friends.
good at this game.
You are good at this game. Who's that purring in the window? Who do you think it is? Tell me. Both of you tell me at the same time.
A cat.
A cat.
A cat. And what does a cat say?
Meow.
Meow, meow, meow. Very good. Who's white and fluffy and hiding in the hay?
It's a sheep.
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 You think so too? What color is a sheep?
What?
White. Are they fluffy?
Yes.
Yeah, they're really fluffy. What do you see up on the hill?
The hay.
The tractor.
The tractor. I see that red tractor
Yeah.
up on the hill. Very good. And what's this over here?
It's a chicken or a rooster or a hen.
What do you think? What's this here?
A brown bird.
Looks like a brown and red bird. But it kind of looks like a hen, but it's really small, so that would tell me that it might just be a bird. But that was a good try.
Yeah.
Who's squeaking and hiding in the barn?
A mouse.
A mouse.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Everyone knows it's a mouse.
Oh, and look, I think something gave it away. What's that?
It's a tail.
It's a tail, and mice have
A law.
a tail.
Yeah.
They have a tail. That's
Pink.
right. Yeah, I don't know if they're all pink. Who's the farmer waving to?
A cow.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
And what does the cow say?
Moo.
Moo. Very good. And he's sitting in that red tractor. Very good,
Same
friends.
tractor.
And that's the end of our story today. You guys did an excellent job. Let's do our circle time. Song is over, and then off we go. Circle time is over. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. I'll see you the next time. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. That was very good. Can you show me goodbye, please? That's it. Good job, my friends. Wow. Good. All right, let's move on to an intermediate learner. But before we do, let's do a secret word. The word is coffee. I need coffee every morning to start my day. What about you? Again, the word is coffee. Now, the intermediate learner may spend about 50% in net and 50% in ITT. You want to generalize the ITT skills into the net. Ask questions, have the learner label and identify things that are directly related to the activity. Here's a video model of me with a learner. Watch how I embed the targets and wait for those choice points. Using a net lesson plan will really help you initially. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Hey, let's take a look. I see a giraffe. Here, let's play with the giraffe. There you go. Oh, and here's the zebra. Which one do you want? Do you want the zebra or the hippo?
Hippo.
Hippo, all right. There you go. What color is the hippo?
Purple.
Purple, that's right. All right, now I have, how many left? Let's count them.
1, 2.
That's right, I've got 2. And which one do you want?
The zebra.
Zebra. Oh, the zebra is green. I like the zebra. Okay, so now you have 3 of them. I have 1. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in. Doot, 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 doot. I'm going to put it in. And down it goes. Okay, can I have the zebra, please? Thank you. Okay, how about you put one of them in? Which one would you like to put in? Yeah, good job. And all right, put the next one in. Put the next one in. Oh. What color is this one?
Purple.
That's purple. Now you can put it in. Oh, you're awesome. And then I've got the zebra. Okay, here you go. Put it in. Good. Okay, now we got to take it out. Oh, it's stuck. It's stuck. Say open, please.
Open, please.
Good job. All right. Oh,
Open.
there we go. I was waiting for you. You did it. Superstar. Okay. Now let's go on to the next one. All right. Oh no, it's stuck again.
Open, please.
Oh, such a good job asking. Nice work. All right, we got to get the last one. So how many do you have?
1, 2.
That's right. Good for you. Okay, let's open this one. Gonna give you a freebie there. And then, how many do you have now? Let's count.
1, 2, 3.
You did it. Fantastic. And last one. Last one. You got the yellow one. Okay. Advanced learners may spend about 80% in the net. Here, they'll generalize their ITT skills into the net. You can build new MANs, TACs, and more complex receptive skills here, responding to WH questions, and so on. Here's a video of a more advanced net lesson plan. So I'm going to have my learner here who's an advanced learner answer some more challenging questions, again, based on what I know about them. Now, if you don't know the learner, I'm going to recommend that you really get to know the learner and some of the things that they can answer. So again, here I might do some animal sounds. Maybe those are previously acquired ones. And you can embed previously acquired ones with targets that they're working on. It doesn't all have to be targets. I like to do a mix of both. So let's take a look at how this is going to be. Hey, look, I've got a dog. Can you put that dog in for me? What does the dog say?
It says woof.
It does say woof. Do you know where you can find a dog? Would you find a dog in the forest or maybe in someone's home?
In someone's home.
In someone's home, that's right. So do you think a dog is a pet or a wild animal?
A pet.
A pet, that's right, because we find pets at home. Here's another one. This one's a really cute dog. What color is the dog?
Brown.
It's brown. And what is the dog smelling? He's sniffing something.
He's sniffing a frog.
A frog. What color is that frog?
It's green.
It's green. Do you know what frogs say?
Ribbit.
Ribbit, that's right. Where can you find a frog? Maybe on in a pond.
In a pond.
Yeah, and what do they sit on sometimes?
A lily pad.
Lily pads, that's right. Are lily pads green or blue?
Green.
They're green, just like the frog. Here's another one. Now, this dog is silly. Why do you think he's silly?
He's running.
Well, dogs run. But why do you think he's silly? What's around his neck? It's a scarf.
It's a scarf.
Yeah, that's right. It's a scarf. And do dogs wear scarves?
No.
Not usually. But who wears a scarf?
People.
Yeah, people do. Do you know when we wear a scarf? Do we wear it in the summer or winter?
In the winter.
In the winter time. It keeps our neck nice and
Warm.
that's right. Here you go. Here's another one. That's another dog. And he is looking at what?
At the bird.
At the bird. Now, this bird is kind of silly because he's what color?
He's green.
What does a bird say?
Tweet.
Tweet. That's right. Okay. So I have one more. This is a very special dog because he has something really special around his neck. What is that called? You could say, I don't know.
I don't know.
That's right. Good. This is called a bow.
A bow.
Yeah, you could tie a bow or a ribbon, and sometimes dogs have that, or they even have a little hair clip. It's so cute. And I see a butterfly. So what is a butterfly?
It's an insect.
It's an insect, that's right. And can you name another insect?
A ladybug.
A ladybug, that's right. What color are ladybugs?
Red and black.
Red and black. Very good. You did an awesome job. I really kept the conversation going. So it wasn't just a simple question and answer. I really tried to engage the learner in a conversation where it was back and forth and make it as natural as possible. I also tried to link my questions wherever I could. Now, with this, you're really thinking, just off the top of your head. There's no question or sheet that you're going by. You may know what your targets are, so you may know that you're working on animal sounds. Maybe you're looking at feature function in class. But the way that you present the questions is really going to take practice because you really want to just go by what you're seeing, and then you can talk about, what is the dog sniffing? It happened to be a frog, and where do you find frogs? Some of the questions your learner may not be able to answer, or maybe that is the target, and so there you would prompt the correct response, and then you might say things like, what does a frog sit on, or where do you, questions where they link up to that item that you're talking about. Again, just to keep the conversation flowing a little bit more. So sometimes you can take something that is a little bit on the simple side, but you can ask very complex questions with your learner, and again, going based off of your program targets. But I also embedded things that were simple because I don't want it to be aversive to my learner. I don't want them to feel like it's very difficult question after difficult question, because you could see when I did ask a harder question, the learner paused, and then I presented them with a prompt, and maybe one of the targets was to teach them to say, I don't know, and then I can provide them with the correct response. So again, it should feel really natural. It should really flow. You should be having fun with it. And I usually tell people when you're doing natural environment teaching, or really any kind of teaching, is to really just get into the teaching and really block everything out of your mind and really focus on what you're doing and having fun with it and making it as fun as possible. I think if you're not having fun, the learner's not having fun, then the teaching really breaks down. So I'm a true believer in having fun in what you're teaching. Often, when I'm sitting in the chair working with a child to model what I'm doing, that's what I'm focused on, and the whole world just kind of stops around me, and I'm so focused on the learner and the questions, and because you really are in your mind thinking of question after question of how do I embed it, how do I make it sound natural, and that, again, is going to take a lot of practice, but I think you guys will do great. So now let's move on to creating a net lesson plan. A net lesson plan is a plan of the learner's program targets. The learner may be working on labeling sand and bucket. These targets can be interspersed with other previously acquired targets. Here's a chart. The activity is sandbox. The theme is construction. I like to have a theme to the play so it makes things a little easier. Avoid unnatural teaching and back-to-back demands from a specific domain. This doesn't feel natural or fun for you or the learner. Remember to be playful, watch your tone of voice, and make it enjoyable. Teaching in the net. First, you want to select a reinforcing activity. Think of a theme and ways to expand. Play and have fun. As you're playing, ask questions to place demands when the motivation is present. State your SD, prompt your learner, then naturally embed a transfer trial if you can. So now we're going to talk about natural environment teaching in a different way. So, when you're playing with toys and things are in context, this is a great time to do natural environment teaching. So what can you do in natural environment teaching? You can talk really about anything. You could talk about colors, you could talk about animals, you could talk about feature, function, and class. So what I like to do is whatever the programs that the learner is working on, I like to embed those into the net. So we're going to assume that the learner is working on colors, they're working on animals, maybe some animal sounds, and they're working on counting. So I'm going to model it for you guys, and then again, we'll break down the different parts that we did and the different domains. So the only thing I want you to really pay attention to is the choice point. So when do I allow the learner the opportunity to provide a response where I'm really hitting my target? And that's what I want you guys to pay attention to, and then pay attention to which domain you think it is. All right, let's take a look. Hey, let's take a look. I see a giraffe. Here, let's play with the giraffe. There you go. Oh, and here's the zebra. Which one do you want? Do you want the zebra or the hippo?
Hippo.
Hippo, all right. There you go. What color is the hippo?
Purple.
Purple, that's right. Okay, how about you put one of them in? Which one would you like to put in? Yeah, good job. And all right, put the next one in. Put the next one in. Oh, what color is this one?
Purple.
That's purple. Now you can put it in. Oh, you're awesome. And then I've got the zebra. Okay, here you go. Put it in. Good. Okay, now we got to take it out. Oh, it's stuck. It's stuck. Say open, please.
Open, please.
Good job. All right. Oh,
Open, please.
there we go. I was waiting for you. You did it. Superstar. Okay. All right. We got to get the last one. So how many do you have?
1, 2.
That's right. Good for you. Okay. Let's open this one. Gonna give you a freebie there. And then, how many do you have now? Let's count.
1, 2, 3.
You did it. Fantastic. And last one. Last one. You got the yellow one. Okay. Let's get into selecting teaching targets. But before we do, let's take a quick stretch and do a Scrabble word. And the word is Kirk. K-I-R-K. And this is a church. Remember, the word is Kirk. All right, let's continue. As an educator, you'll be required to select program targets. If your learner is working on an imitation with objects program, you can select objects that you can incorporate in your play. For example, selecting a tambourine as a target, which can be embedded when you and your learner pretend you're in a marching band. If you know that your learner likes a car wash, you can teach what questions that are associated with car wash. For instance, what goes in the car wash? What comes out of the car wash? What cleans the car? Think of novel ways of running the target. Getting someone's attention happens when someone is, let's say, on the phone or talking to someone else behind a closed door. All right, let's jump into the quiz, then move on to NET versus ITT. Good luck, everyone. The RBT said you roll the and then prompted ball while playing bowling. What domain did the RBT run in the nets? A. Manding, B. Intraverbal, C. Receptive, or D. Tact? And the correct response is B, intraverbal. The RBT said, clap your hands, touch your nose, touch your head while playing in the sandbox. Did the RBT run receptive skills right during NET? A, yes, or B, no? And the correct response is B, no. Stimulus-stimulus pairing is when a neutral stimulus is presented at the same time as an unconditioned stimulus. A, yes, or B, no? And the correct response is A, yes. The RBT gives the learner crayons and begins coloring with him using hand over hand. She has a Dora movie playing in the background. The learner begins pushing her hand and the movie. What might be wrong here? A, the learner does not like coloring. B, the learner does not like Dora. C, the learner does not like the RBT. And the correct response is B, the learner does not like Dora. It's a possibility that the learner doesn't like Dora, and therefore by pairing Dora with the coloring, it's actually not effective. So these are things that we have to pay attention to. NET versus ITT. In NET, we often are teaching loosely with no specific location. Targets are embedded naturally during play. In ITT or DTT, teaching is structured and at the table. Targets are intermixed using a difficult and easy ratio. In the NET, start the learners here. Generalize targets, follow learners' EOs. In ITT, core skills are taught here. There are many trials and it's more of a fast-paced teaching style. Research has shown that although both NET and DTT are effective in establishing verbal repertoires in children with autism, NET alone may be effective in establishing spontaneous verbal behavior and its generalization. Remember, as you're playing with the learner, you may have moments where they don't respond to you or they ignore you altogether. Remember to stop, look, and listen. Gently stop their hands and repeat your SD and be sure they comply. But again, work on making sure that it's fun. My final thoughts. Natural environment teaching is a really fun way to teach. I find that most therapists will initially really struggle with this, but once they master it, they enjoy it and become so creative and so good at it. Remember to be playful and have fun. Sing songs and be prepared for NET. Think of ways you can play with an item. Go into your session knowing what you could do and try something new. Thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you next time. Hello everyone. So I want to go through a natural environment teaching lesson plan. Now these will come in all different shapes and forms. Maybe you're not even familiar with it. Maybe your center doesn't use it, but I really like this. I think this is something that can really give therapists something to work with, especially initially when you're working with, let's say you're working with children and you really don't know how to play, or you're really struggling with that play and you don't know what to say or what to do or how to do it. So, I modeled really the importance of pairing and really building that relationship first with your learners. So that's one of the first things that you want to make sure that you have with your learner. Next is you really want to know your domains. Now on the top of this sheet here, you can see that I've listed out the domains. And if we go through them real quick, the MAND it's the request. So this is the child requesting or the individual requesting from you, not you requesting. A lot of people get this confused. So this is the individual requesting from you. And what this tells us is that they have motivation for that item. And so that, again, I don't like to typically use the word want, but it's a way that a lot of people understand it. So, they want this and they want it because the motivation is there. So if they're hungry or thirsty, they want that food item or that drink item. And so that motivation is higher. And so therefore, we can call it a pure man because it's under the control of that EO. And that's really what's important here. Next is the receptive. And the receptive is, so it's that ability to follow instructions or to identify things. So they're listening to something and then they do that something. So if I said to someone, clap your hands, they would clap their hands because they're listening to my instruction. Next is the tact, and the tact is the label. So again, the individual is labeling what they see in the presence of the item. So if they saw, for example, a car, they would say car and label it spontaneously. Now, most often with a tact, we're presenting an SD like, what is it? Or what are they doing? In order for the individual to say the tact. But you know, if it was occurring naturally, then we would see that happening on its own. And that's that pure label there. The intraverbal, that is the fill-in. So if I ask a question and they respond, and if I, said twinkle, twinkle, little, they would say star. So, those types of fill-ins as well. So the verbal SD does not match the verbal response. And that's something that's really key here. The other thing that's really key about the intraverbal is most often, or usually, that item is not present. So I don't need the star to be present for me to say twinkle twinkle little and they fill in star. Now when you're doing natural environment teaching, it may occur that the items are there. So if I said you roll the, and the child said ball, and I had a ball in my hand, well, it's an intraverbal that I'm trying to work on, but because the ball is present, I might actually be tackling more of a tact. So that's something just to keep in mind. But if I'm teaching and we're playing in the net, depending on whether I'm taking data on this or not, or, probe data, let's say, then that might impact my data because it's not a pure intraverbal at that moment because the ball is actually present. So just keep that in mind when you're teaching. Then we have the echoic, and so this one is straightforward. The individual is repeating your verbal stimulus. So if I said ball, they said ball. If I said cat, they said cat, and so on. And then we've got motor imitation, and that's copying my motor action. So if I was pretending to fly like an airplane, they would do the same. Okay, so let's actually go into some of the parts of the net lesson plan and how to really create one. Now, again, this is a template that I don't use. I just created it for the purposes of today's talk. And you might see this, in all sorts of, different ways, depending on whether you're working independently or you're working at a center, maybe you're working in the school system. You might have to create your own. Maybe the BCBA has their own and they provide that for you. So keep that in mind. But what I did here for just us is I've listed out some of the programs that this child might actually be working on. So they're working on producing sounds. They're working on palm out to receive. So this is for a child to learn to put their hand out to take as opposed to grabbing or engaging in problem behavior to take. And so this would be an indication to the person working with the individual that when they place their palm out, they want to receive that item. Again, we don't want them to grab. So this is a great program that we'd like to introduce right away. Pointing with the index finger. So a lot of children with autism sometimes don't point, and so we want to build up that skill. And then we've got song fill-ins, and we've got imitation with objects. So these are some of the programs that we're working on. And then what I like to do is I like to pick an activity. I don't like to just say we're going to do, let's say bubbles. Bubbles might be very challenging because it's very limited in how I can play with it. I want to pick something that I can create a theme out of it. I can do more, than just blow the bubbles. With, let's say, the bowling ball and pins, there are probably so many different things I can do that I can make bowling really fun. And so I always tell everybody, when you take an activity, think of how many different ways that you can play within that activity. So with the bowling ball and pins, I can, take the ball and roll it and knock down the pins. I can, put the pins back up and line them up again. I can actually take the learner and roll them towards the pins and knock the pins down that way, turning them into almost like the bowling ball. Children love that. They find it really fun. So they're just like rolling and they knock down the pins. So there's so many different things that you can do. And what you want to do is look at, how do I motivate the learner so that they engage in the behaviors that I want. And so one of the first behaviors that we want them to engage in is, let's say, the mand. Now again, for this learner here, they don't have mands as part of their targets. But let's suppose that they don't for now, and you could still have that mand in place when the moment arises. So let's just say that you lined up all the pins, and now you have the ball, and the learner really loves to roll the ball and knock down all the pins. So you're holding the ball, so you've got control of that ball. Now you have the opportunity to say the word ball and then give it, and then give it to them based on their motivation in that moment. So I can actually tackle ball, and I might just model it, and they might echo it, which would be excellent. That would be really, really what we're looking for here if it wasn't a program target. So I'm going to hold that ball. They're looking at it, anticipating it. And as I'm about to give it to them, I just say ball and I give it to them. They take the ball and they knock it down, knock down the pins. Even when they're about to roll the ball and that ball is going towards the pins, I might label ball again, just to create that association between the ball and that reinforcing activity. So that's something that you can think of. Another mand or something that I could have them request for is the actual pin. So I hold the pins, and let's say we're lining them up now, and I get, we have one pin, it's the red pin, then I put the blue pin, then I have a yellow pin, and now I have another pin, and each time that I'm handing the pin to the learner, I'm saying pin. Now if this was a target, then I would take a moment to pause to allow the learner to say pin. And so I give them pin, pin, and then I could wait, and then the learner might say pin. If they don't, I would label it pin and move on. But again, it's not a label here. It's not attacked, because they're motivated for the item because they want that item. They want to, line up all the pins so that they can knock down the pins. So you do have to assess the motivation, make sure that they are motivated before you start tackling it as a mand. If they're looking away or they're turned away, then watch out for that. Make sure that they're really looking at that pin, and they're reaching for it, or their palm is out, indicating that they want that pin. And so, and one last one, if we wanted to, tackle another mand, is, maybe the possibility of roll. And so here, all the pins are lined up, and maybe the learner really likes the way that I roll the ball, because I knock them all down, and that's really reinforcing for the learner. Or maybe they like to be the bowling ball, and I roll them towards the the pins. And so then what I could do is, let's suppose that they're the my little bowling ball, and I'm rolling them towards the pins. Each time that I roll them, I would say roll, roll. And then just before knocking them down, I might pause for that moment to see if they would fill in and say or request roll. And then, of course, I would roll them into the bowling pins, so I would knock those bowling pins down. So these are some playful ways that you can incorporate mands into this activity. The next domain is the receptive. And the receptive here is, again, if we looked at which one here is receptive, the palm out isn't really the receptive. This really does fall under the mand. So I could actually put that here. And so every time that I get them to let's say I'm going to give them the ball. Before I give them the ball, I have to make sure that their palm is always out. Now, palm out might also be, and I'm just going to jump here for a moment, a motor imitation. Depending on how it's being taught, I might actually model the behavior of the palm, I didn't mean to write that, of the palm out, so that they copy your behavior and then they do this. So it is a man because they are requesting by placing their palm out. It is a request for these items potentially. And each time that I tackle anything that I'm going to give them, I'm going to make sure that their palm is out and I'm prompting that. And the way that I might do that is through motor imitation. I might also just use hand over hand. Again, it depends on how the program is designed and what the most effective way is. But you can see that as you're building a net lesson plan, some of your targets might actually go across domains, which is just fine. So now when we get into the receptive, one of the things that I want my learner to do is to point with their index finger. Now, I might be labeling things like, let's say, again, I might say, oh, where's the ball? And I get them to point to the ball. And of course, you would probably have to prompt this by shaping up their fingers and getting that index finger to point. But that might be the teaching procedure there. So I can get them to receptively identify the ball. Again, now it's across, domains. And that's really the beauty of NET is you are teaching the concept, but across all the domains so that the child really understands. But it's different depending on what we're doing in that moment. So if I say, oh no, where's the ball? And they start looking around for the ball, that would show me that they're receptively, listening and following my direction or my instructions of where's the ball, and they're looking for it, which is what I'm looking for here. And so here you can actually specify what you're doing. So I might say, where is, and we're looking for the ball, and the learner has to find the ball. Another one might be if I was looking at the colors of the pins, and I want them to, let's say, point. And so I can say blue and point to the blue one and shape their finger to point to the blue one. And then I might point to the green one and the yellow one. And each time that we are talking about the color, I'm having the learner point to the correct color. But again, my goal here is that they're working on that finger and that index finger pointing during this time. And then another one, for receptive, let's say we did, let's say I wanted them to receptively follow my instructions and roll the ball, then I might also have it here where I say roll the ball, and now they have to follow my instructions here. Now, what I like to do with things like this is actually do it in context. So we are playing with the bowling pins and the bowling ball, and we have that set up, and so they're motivated for that activity. But also when they're about to roll the ball, that's when I like to say it. So they lined up all the pins, they take the bowling ball, and they're about to roll the ball, and they place their hands down and they're, just about to release. Then I might say, roll the ball. And I tackle it in that moment so that, again, I associate their action with what I'm saying. So that's another way of doing that there. But this is different than this because I'm holding the ball here saying, and waiting for them to say roll, while here they're holding the ball and I'm telling them to roll the ball. So do you see the difference there? So now these are some of my receptive things that I could tackle in the moment. The key here is that you want to do it in context and you want to do it where it's most natural. If the child is setting up the pins, you don't want to say something like roll the ball or something like that. If they're setting up the pins, I can talk about the color of the pins and tackle pointing. I might also do some, for example, counting. and we count the different all the pins that we're lining up, or we could talk about colors. There's so many different things that you can talk about, and the more natural it is, the better it is. But really expand the way that you're playing with your learner. But you also want to modify it based on the learner that you're working with. So I'm assuming here we've got a very early learner, so we're keeping it very simple. Now, with a lot of our learners, they're not tacting, possibly because they don't have the vocal repertoire yet. They're not echoing, and possibly they're not even, manding. So we really want that echoic to start developing in order for us to get some of these other verbal domains. But for a tact, here you're saying something like, what is it? Or what color is it? Or how many do you see? But again, if you have a very early learner, they may not be able to respond to these questions. But you could still do it. You might do something outside of your actual goals here. So I might say, how many? But then I prompt it right away. So let's say we're setting up the pins, and I go, how many pins? And then I count 1, 2, 3. 3 pins. That's right. And that's what I do. But I'm not necessarily having them count it because they may not have that ability. But I might take their finger again, and if we were doing that pointing, I might have here as I'm counting that they point to it, and that's another way of tackling one of my goals. And so here I might say how many, and again I'm looking at them pointing. And that's my focus. So now I'm focusing on the pointing in 2 different areas. And again, I'm talking about 2 different things. So that's something that you can definitely add and think about. How am I going to add the point when I'm doing this net lesson plan? I may not do any more tacts here. Anything else that we're tacting is really, it could just be more me just modeling that language for them. So for example, if I'm saying ball or if I'm saying pin, but I might tackle it in, some of the echoics. And that's what I'm really going to focus on here. For the introverbal, this is the fill-in, or possibly the question. So, I might say something like, if song fill-ins may not go. I'm just trying to think of the ables and what might go. Song fill-ins may not be the right fit here unless you have a bowling ball song or you create your own. And that's something that we do here at the center quite a bit, is we actually create our own songs for a lot of things. So I might say, something like, it's time to roll the ball. It's time to roll the ball, something like that. And so now my target becomes ball again. And the introverbal is them filling in ball when I say ball. So again, it is a song fill-in. Now the idea is that they can fill in parts of those songs or phrases from those songs. And sometimes we're looking at songs that they're more familiar, such as Twinkle Twinkle or Head and Shoulders or something like that. And so you can associate a song with, when you're playing bowling, or you can make up your own. And again, here the idea is that they're filling in that part of the song. So it's not, really specific to that song, but if they have, or like specific, it's not a specific song, but it's one that you've made up for the purposes of this activity. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, when it comes to echoics, we're working on sounds here. And so, rather than, doing something like whoosh or bang or boom, things like that while you're playing, I like to take all of that out and really make it super clear to the learner the language that we're using. Don't add in too much, but keep the language quite simple and repetitive so that they can actually repeat these things. So now I might say ball as the echoic, but their target might be ba. Okay, if we were doing, let's say, an SSP. Now, again, you may not necessarily tackle it in this net lesson plan, but, you could do something like ba, 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 ball, something playful to get them to produce that sound. But then I really want to end off on that ball because I want them to associate ball with the ball when they're, when we're playing with it. Or again, here you want to focus on the targets, but at the same time you want to make sure that you're not skewing far away from what you're working on in terms of your programs. So, I think it's really crucial here for you to think about how do you add your targets that correlate with, what you're working on in your programs. But you also want to filter out anything that is that's not a part of your programming or excessive language, so that the learner is not, because then they have to really filter out, well, what do I say? Am I saying, whoosh and bang and boom? Or am I saying, ba, and it's associated with ball and, the actual item ball? So think about that when you're setting up. But this is, a way that you can set up a net lesson plan so that you can actually work with your learner and make it as interactive as possible. You're also tackling the things that they should be working on in terms of their programs, and it keeps it flowing. I think when you go in with a plan, you're more likely to succeed than if you took the bowling ball and the pins and you're like, okay, what do I do now? What do I say? And but when you have something laid out and you've thought about it, then, and you can see, as I was designing it, I'm really thinking about what is it that I want to tackle and what could I tackle with them. Now, I don't use a net lesson plan anymore because a lot of this stuff, just comes natural as I work with the learner. And the same thing is going to happen to you. As you start to say, okay, this early learner, I can do things like, playful, like, where's the ball? Or, let's line up the pins. Where's the pin? Something like that. Or talk about colors or counting them and keeping it super, super simple. But as your learner becomes more advanced, then you can start adding some more targets. And we'll talk about an intermediate learner in just a moment. Lastly is motor imitation. So again, here we put palm out so we can actually have them copy our motor imitation. What else could they do during this time? Well, if we had two balls, we could have them roll the ball just like us. And so remember, we're doing imitation with objects, so there's your imitation with object. The other thing we can do is we can have them line up the pins and copy our behavior. So as I'm lining up some of the pins, they're doing the same. So they're copying my behavior. Now, motor imitation is really important because this really impacts our vocal ability and to imitate. So you need that. You need them to imitate you. You need that joint attention. You need them to look and see what you're doing. So when they do that, then they're really attending to you. And I think that's really what the key is. If your learner is not attending to you, if they're looking away or walking away, then you really want to consider changing up the activity or not doing that activity. So find something that your learner really likes. This is the key here. You don't want to just pick bowling ball and pins because, I talked about it. You want to really observe your learner, play with your learner, find things, and then say, okay, you know what, I can really work with this. We'll move into the intermediate learner in just a moment, and we'll talk about playing with the sandbox as a different activity. So let's take a look at an intermediate learner and what some of their targets could be in a net lesson plan. So let's assume that our learner is working on, receptive ID of, just items that are, let's say, in the net that they might be exposed to. We're also going to look at, and I'll just do this so you can see the different ones. They're also working on, let's say, animal sounds. And I'm just going to choose another one. They are labeling actions, okay? So these are some things that an intermediate learner may be working on. Obviously, they could be working on other skills as well. And so here, of course, we want to tackle what their mands are. And we're going to, again, here we're going to assume that they are working on manding for items. Whether they're present or out of sight, it doesn't matter at this point. I just want to talk about the actual setup of the net lesson plan. So our activity is going to be the sandbox. Now, this is a lot of fun if you have, some of that magnetic sand, or if you actually have a sandbox at your center or in the school that you work at, or if you're doing home therapy, same thing. A lot of families might have a sandbox in their backyard or in their basement. These are things that you can definitely get set up, and they're fun to do, and kids just love it. And so when we're looking at a mand, there's so many different things that you can do with this activity. And again, I think it's really important when you pick an activity that you pick the right kind of activity so that you can really work with it. And so here, when I'm working with the sandbox, well, I can have them man for a shovel. If we're, playing with those little shovels, I can have them man for the bucket or the pail, whatever you may call it. I might get them to also man for a truck if we're using a truck to, let's say put the sand in the back of the truck. Let's say you have like a dump truck and you use one of those. Those are a lot of fun. Kids love them. You can do a lot of different things. Now, this program specifically is manning for items. If it was, manning for, actions, then you could possibly do some actions. Now, the mand is also, depending on what level the learner is at. If this is an intermediate learner, you may not be working on one word mand. So it might be something like, give me the shovel, please, or I want the bucket, or, give me truck, whatever the mands might be, or can I have the truck, please? Depending on how many words they can actually produce and what the target is. So that's something you're going to have to look at the program sheet for to understand how many words you can have in that phrase. But this is great. You can see, and we could probably do more mands depending on what other activities we could do. The child could man for, you've got the shovel, you've got the bucket, you've got the truck. I'm just trying to think of other things that you can incorporate. So what else could the child, or what else could you incorporate, and what else could the child man for when you're playing with the sand? So just think about that for a moment. I want you to really envision yourself playing with the sandbox. One is we can actually man for the actual sand. And so depending on how this is, if you're in a really big sandbox and you can't control the sand, then that might be a little bit challenging. However, if you're the one who is shoveling the sand and putting it on the truck, on their dump truck or something, or in the pail, in the bucket, then yeah, you can have them request for, sand, or put more sand in, please. Again, depending on how much of a phrase they could be working on in that. And so that's really, really, you can see you've got so many different mands that you can work on, and this is great. And you can incorporate other things outside of, just the sandbox. Again, if I was just playing with bubbles, it would really limit me, and I wouldn't be able to expand my play and tackle things. So the activity that you choose is really key. Now, receptive, they're working on receptive identification of items. So what could you possibly tackle here? Now, again, you have to look at the program sheet and what they're working on. But let's suppose they're working on the target truck. Well, that's great because we're also doing it as a mand. What's another one that we could possibly do? Well, we could do shovel. So when you are selecting program targets, now this is where it gets interesting. When you actually select program targets, this is the kind of thinking that you want to do is, what can I work on with my learner that I could also tackle in the net? So, if you were doing things like, I'm I'm just trying to think of something that would be very hard for you to bring to the actual classroom. A lot of things like animals and vehicles you could totally bring in, which is perfect. But something that would be challenging for you to bring in, let's just say that you're working at a center and you don't have access to, let's say it's a microwave. Well, you could show a picture of a microwave, but let's say you don't have a microwave on site. That might be a little hard to bring. Again, nowadays there are little kid microwaves, so you can have that. You can also pretend and make a microwave out of Lego. So you're really not limited. I honestly believe that if you're very creative, you can make anything. I've made a car wash before out of paper, and the kids love it. They put the car through it and so on. So you're really not limited to selecting targets. You can really pick any target that you want and then be able to tackle it in the net. You just have to be really, really creative. So truck, shovel, those are a given. Obviously, sand you could do. If you were working on other things that the child had to receptively identify in that, it might be, we've got the truck, the shovel. And so here, what you would be doing is you would say to them as you're playing and, they're doing something, and you might say to them, "Oh, can you find the shovel for me? Where's the truck?" And so they're pointing to the item. If you had a different program where it was receptively identifying, let's say adjectives or something like that, and you had to, identify the big one versus the small one, or the colors, then again, that is something that you would put here. Now, for labeling, they're actually doing actions. And so what sorts of actions could you do when you're playing with a sandbox? So just take a moment and think about that. Again, when you are setting targets for your actions program, you want to think about, okay, if I did pouring, that's an action. Could I pour anything when I'm doing, when I'm playing with the sand? Well, yeah, I can pour sand. I can also bring water into this. Again, it depends on your sandbox and where you are, but I can bring some water and pour water to make something. So one of my learners once, we were in a daycare, and they had this huge sandbox, and I think like all the kids could fit in the sandbox. That's how big it was. And that's exactly what we did. We actually got all the kids working on this together because it was just so much fun. And we had little sand castles, and then we made a little like a little river area, and we took water, and one of the targets was pour water. And so we would pour the water into that area, and we made a little river and stuff. So again, we really were creative. We really played, and we really expanded the play. So pouring could be one. What's another one that they could possibly label? What about something like pushing? If I was pushing, the truck, or if I was, pushing something else, pushing the sand and making a big pile, I could, do pushing. So again, depending on the targets that you have in that program, you want to look and say, okay, I'm going to do sandbox. What one would go? Like if you had jumping, well, you could probably, again, you just have to be creative. You could probably incorporate jumping into it, and you could have little people and they're jumping over, the big sand pile or something. And then, you could say to them, "What is he doing?" And they would label jumping. That's right. What about if you were working on swimming? Now you might say, well, how am I going to incorporate swimming in sandbox? Well, let's go back to the river example. If you had, if you created that little river and you had these little people that you were playing with, then you can say, oh, he's swimming in the water, and you can ask them to tact the action of swimming in that. So again, creativity is really your goal here, and is really the key to making a net lesson plan really, really successful. Now for introverbals, I don't have anything here listed that they're working on, but now I can incorporate mastered skills that they've worked on in the past. And so I could do something like ready, set, and they have to fill in go. I could do something like, push the, and they have to fill in truck, depending on what I'm, playing with. I could do something like pour the, and they have to fill in, water. If I was doing very simple type intraverbals, if they are working on, or if they've worked on more difficult intraverbals, like answering WH questions or feature function class type questions, then you can definitely ask. You could say, what is a truck? And they have to fill in that it's a vehicle. And so those are some of the intraverbals that you can work on. Again, if they don't have any targets, let's say in their programming, you can work on previously acquired skills. And I actually like to intersperse previously acquired skills into the net lesson plan, so that they're not just working on difficult tasks. We're really interspersing the easy and the difficult together. Again, it should be very fun, so it shouldn't feel like work. They should really be enjoying the activity, and if they're not, then you really have to reconsider the activity that you've selected. And then, of course, the echoic. Here, because they're an intermediate learner, chances are their echoics are quite developed, but I still like to incorporate that. And so I might do like beep beep as the truck is backing up. What else could you do? So think about that as you're developing these. So I know I've got a shovel, and I've got, the bucket, and I've got the truck, and I've got the sand. What else could you possibly add as an echoic to this? Well, if you think about it, again, you have to think about how, what sounds maybe some of the things make. Really what's coming to mind is a lot of the truck sounds. So the beeping noise, the maybe the sound that it makes when it's pushing something. So like, something like that as it's pushing the sand. So sounds that are associated with the actual item. So that the learner can learn that type of verbal behavior as they're playing with those items, and they might actually use that as they're playing. And then motor imitation. So again, here, let's assume that they can copy almost any action that you do with the object, or even your own actions. So you can just model and say, hey, do this. And they copy what you do with the truck, or what you do with the shovel, or what you do with the sand, or the pouring, whatever it may be. And so again, you could list out, and these might be mastered skills only, but that's fine. So you could still, you may not put it into your net lesson plan because they're mastered skills. But I think the key here is you really need to know your learner. You need to know what they like. You also need to know what they are working on, what targets what they've mastered, and if you didn't know that the learner could echo things, or can engage in multiple motor, imitations, or that they had these intraverbal responses to these questions, or whatever it may be, then you wouldn't know what to tackle, and you might tackle things that are way beyond what they could respond to, and then you don't get a response, and then the play becomes very demanding and not very fun. So do get to know your learner, know what their targets are, know what they've mastered, and go from there. So that's really what a net lesson plan can look like. And again, it's a guide for you guys to use when you are working with your learners, so that you know what it is that you could possibly say or do during that play. But if you look here, I didn't tackle any colors, or any counting, or any pre-academic type stuff. I love to incorporate that into the play. So, we could definitely tack colors here. We could count the things that we have. So you could really incorporate so many things within that to intersperse it. And that's just, again, a guide for you guys to think about while I'm playing with my learner, what can we say and do that would make this very playful? You don't want to sit down quietly beside your learner as they're playing with the item. You want to interact with them, and you want to make sure that you're getting eye contact. I mean, that's huge. So for example, here, if I am, just about to pour the sand, let's say that's what, this is right here. I want to ensure that just before I pour that sand, the learner is looking at me. If I'm giving the bucket to the learner, I want to make sure that their palm is out and they're looking at me. So these are really key elements when you're working with your learner. You don't want to lose the skills that they had before by allowing them to grab or allowing them to look down as they're taking the item. So keep that in mind as you're doing your net teaching. Make sure that your learner is engaging in previously acquired skills or behaviors so that you're maintaining those skills. So eye contact and, taking with a palm out is probably are probably two things that are very, very important that you want to make sure that you don't lose in your teaching or in your interaction. So keep that in mind, and I hope this was helpful. The next time that you create a net lesson plan, really think about what it is that you would like to incorporate, but this is also going to help you when you're picking out targets. So the next time that you're setting up targets for your learner, think about activities that they enjoy and what sorts of targets you can actually embed in that. Okay, guys, until the next time, enjoy making some net lesson plans.